And so the moon, or back then it was known as something else, people have different names for it, for different cultures. The spirit of the moon itself, the life force essence of it, originally came from the Pleiades. It was one of the seven sisters. Mm. Now, this explanation is really important for the divine feminine and for the women of the world, the woman of the world, because the moon is playing such an intimate role in your lives. It affects men too, but the effect it has on women is really quite profound.
It affects men because women affect men when we get affected by the moon. My husband's always complaining about it.
Yes, but the moon affects us in a different way, which I'll gladly explain. It is a really big subject because it's having such an influence on our world. So it was brought here and it was used to seed the earth a very, very long time ago. Now, it came over several stages. It didn't just come once, seed it, and that was it. It's been coming and going and coming and going. And then in recent epoch of time, there was a certain cosmic empire that found out what was going on here, because this was being set up as a fractal of the universe. The amount of energy flowing into this domain, into this part of the universe, was so substantial that it got their attention. And because one of the most valuable resources, cosmically speaking, is genetics and life force. They're not really into material things. Yeah, they're into genetics because they're into life force, and life force is what they're really chasing, because that's what gives them power. And so it's that same old, as above, so below. So you'd be surprised what goes on out there is not too different to what goes on down here.
Yeah.
And so there was a battle that ensued for control of the solar system and the planet. And the Pleiadians came here with the moon to try and defend the Earth. They couldn't help themselves. They really had such a love for the Earth, as I do, we all do, that they, even though they knew it was probably a lost cause, because they're not a really strong warrior race, and the others are battle-hardened warrior empires, they still came anyway. And they lost the moon in the battle. Now, they didn't bring all the genetic codes and everything with it, but there was still enough information in there which the other group got their hands on and enabled them to actually start controlling this reality through that knowledge. But also the thing is about the moon is it was lost in the battle. They took the crystals which were the drive force out of it. They also withdrew the life force. The being who is the moon, she withdrew, it's a feminine being from the Pleiades, she withdrew her life force out of the moon. And so they ended up with a dead planetoid. And they put it around Mars for a while. While they studied it, they smothered it with silica on the surface. And that's a very important point, why they chose silica. Why do we have silicon chips in our computers? It's because it interfaces beautifully with the silica in our bodies. With silica helps to build the framework of your bones, of all the protein bonds. You need silica for all of that. So that's why they smothered it with silica, because they used silica as an interface, an energetic interface.
A form of control.
To control the human population. So then they placed the Earth around the orbit of, they placed the moon around the orbit of the Earth in a specific orbit. Now, if people think that's a crazy notion, you've really got to take a look at the moon. Just take a basic look at the moon. Okay, so here we have a prop for a moon. Now, what people don't normally do is ask these really basic questions, very basic questions in regards to the moon. Okay, and I've got a reference point here, just this little bit of tack here, just so people can see as a reference point. People don't realise that the moon actually spins on its axis. People don't know that. And the reason it spins on its axis is that we always see just one face of the moon. And I think because you only see one face of the moon, it doesn't spin on its axis, but it does. And I'll explain how it does. If you're on the planet here, and it only ever see one face of the moon, it has to be spinning around. See? So it's done with every revolution around the planet, it does one revolution on its own axis. For it to actually be only ever facing one side. Okay? So that is a question that not many people ever ask or realise about the moon. So what are the chances that the moon has the perfect revolution on its own axis that matches the revolution around the Earth? Precisely. Yeah. So precisely that not even after 10,000 years will you start to see more of the other side of the moon.
The dark side of the moon.
The dark side of the moon. Pink Floyd knew what they were singing about. Right? So, here's another thing. When we look at an eclipse, the circumference of the moon lines up exactly with the circumference of the sun during an eclipse. Now, if something was just drifting along and got caught in the Earth's orbit, first of all, the orbit would be elliptical, but the orbit of the moon is circular. And for it to have been caught in exactly the right spot to match the circumference of the sun during an eclipse perfectly, is the mathematical chances are improbable. Even mathematically, the chances of that happening are so ridiculous, the numbers are so great in probability, that even somebody who works with probabilities would say that it just can't be. Yeah, just from a probable mathematical perspective.
Yeah, it's highly, highly, highly unlikely.
Yeah. Okay, and then you've got to add the secondary one, that it goes around the Earth at exactly the same time that it completes one orbit around the Earth. It completes one rotation of its own axis as well. So not only have you got the first probability, or shall I say improbability, of it just happening to land in exactly the right spot to match, because if the moon was just a few kilometres further this way, out of millions of kilometres between the Earth and the sun, right? If it was just a little bit closer, then you would not see the circumference of the sun. It would black out the sun quite profoundly. If it was just a few kilometres the other way, you would see a huge band of the sun and you wouldn't get the effect of the eclipse. So the precision required for that to be taking place is beyond any probability that mathematics can prove. Now here's the real kicker. It just so happens to be synchronised with the reproductive cycles, the menstrual cycle of the women of the world. What are the chances of all that? Now, women feel that they have, their menstrual cycles are in sync with the moon because it's a beautiful thing. Prior to the moon actually being on the Earth, around the Earth's orbit, menstrual cycles were actually a euphoric experience.
That would be nice.
Because it's about the creation of life.
Yeah.
So the sad thing is, the moon was the one mechanical device that this empire had, these beings of ill intent had, to actually connect energetically to the Earth. There was nothing, because it seeded the Earth. So there was this beautiful, rich, energetic connection between the Earth and the moon existing. So now once they got their hands on it and they studied it, then they put it in and connected it and plugged in. And the reason they wanted to plug into the reproductive cycles of woman is because this planet is a woman. And if you're a cosmic conqueror, in order to be able to actually control a planetary reality, you need to understand everything about that reality. And you want to dig as deep as you can into that reality to actually understand how to control all life within that reality. So you need to understand the basic foundational essence of what that reality is built out of. What's the life force that actually creates that reality, manifests it into being. And they know who this world is. That's why if you want to control humanity, you want to control this world, you have to control the feminine.
Right, and that's why there's so much like suppression of the feminine.
That's why there's so much suppression.
Cultures and religions.
And that's why birthing is painful. That's why menstrual is painful. Birthing is supposed to be orgasmic. You know, menstrual cycles are supposed to be euphoric. It's about the creation of life. There's not meant to be pain involved. And this knowledge, this forgotten knowledge that I have just shared, is so powerful to know for women and for men. It has changed my life. It has totally changed my relationship with women, with this planet and with all women of the world, because there's so much more to this with what every woman carries. Every woman carries this pain, and also the moon is also pulling on the water on the ocean. That's where we get tides from, and so what it's doing is it's pulling the emotional body of woman one way, then the other, and then us men, we have absolutely no idea about your every moment of everyday experience. You women are having a totally different experience of this world to us men. We are so far removed from your experience. The more I come to know the feminine, the more I come to understand Mother Earth and the world of woman, it just floors me. It's so humbling.
So that's why we have these rise and fall of emotions on a daily basis, even
your emotional
from
body
1 minute
is
to the
being
next.
tortured. You're being tortured emotionally by this device, that's why we have this really strange relationship with it, because on one hand we love the moon, we have this deep, profound love for it, but on the other hand it doesn't feel right. But to understand the knowledge I just shared will help you understand the love we have for the moon was the ancient love we had once for it, for what it used to do and what it used to be. But what the moon is being used for now, it's being used against the feminine. So for the women who are doing the moon ceremonies and worshipping the moon, they don't actually realise on one level what they're doing, that it's the slaves worshipping the master.
Giving the energy.
They're feeding, because there's beings that live inside the moon. There is a very real agenda here to suppress the feminine. It's very covert and it's very real. This isn't a joke. This isn't a fantasy. It's not a conspiracy theory. This is, again, you don't have to accept what I'm saying. And I said I'd speak in the affirmative, but you don't know my life. You don't know what I'm involved in behind the scenes. And there is a lot more going on with this world than what you realise. So the knowledge and wisdom and information I have just shared in regards to the moon, if you really try not to go, oh, this is just silly, and just take into consideration what I have said and see how it feels and the way you feel, the way your relationship is with the moon, the way your relationship is with the earth.
The thing is I found that when you speak, it's so complex and it's so matter of fact and there's so much information, it does make you question what your previous beliefs are, because you can't have so much depth and so much knowledge about something that you're just making up. That's what gets me.
It questioned all my beliefs. You see, I'm in that same position. It rocked my world before I reconciled with this knowledge, with this understanding, this knowing. And I know it's in the affirmative. I understand that and again, you can walk away from this and never accept it in your life. That's fine. I'm at peace with that. I love everyone unconditionally. So, but I am speaking the affirmative because it's my perspective, my knowing, and my life.
And for the people that are listening that do resonate with what we're saying here, how do we take this knowledge and actually do something with it? Like, what do we do now that we know this?
Now we understand what is affecting us. So as before it was a mystery. So you go through life and you're having all these emotional upheavals and you don't know why. You're having all these pains and you don't know why. For men, the way the moon affects men is mostly in the mind. It affects us here more than it affects you here. But it affects you here more than it affects us here. Now for some men, would you believe, actually get affected by the moon in a feminine way more than a lot of women. So it's not 100% women get affected one way, 100% of men get affected. There's overlapping that occurs. Because some women are very masculine and some men are very feminine. Yeah, and the more us men, seriously, get back in touch with our feminine side, the more we understand what woman is going through, then the more we can reconcile, we can empathise, we can actually monitor our behaviour towards that. But if you're going through a very difficult period in your life, then, and I mean that in every way, then we can actually understand what it is you're actually going through. And that makes us more patient, more understanding, more compassionate, more empathetic.
Yeah, and it's very helpful in relationships when you are having challenges. Is the main thing is to understand where your partner's coming from. And when I talk about relationships, the main thing that I say when you are trying to get to a resolution is to ask, what does your partner need right now? And put yourself in their shoes, because you're so busy trying to defend yourself. So yeah, that's a really good insight into helping, to get through these emotional roller coaster times.
And when men aren't seeing straight and not thinking right, you can understand that we're being affected by them then too. It affects us in our minds more than, but also we're all water. So we do still feel the effects of that magnetic pull, like on the oceans, the water in our bodies get pulled, our emotional bodies get pulled, our consciousness gets pulled in different directions. So we get affected by it too, but not to the degree that woman does. Because I really wanted to control this reality, control the feminine, control the way humans reproduce. And it sounds like an insane, outlandish conspiracy theory, but there is a very real agenda going, and it's a big story. I can't give you a whole lot now, as you're aware.
We're here all day, all night.
There's a. It's not just a one-off little theory. This is part of a much larger body of knowledge of understanding what the Earth is all about and what we're doing here and what's going on with this world.
So I think here we're just trying to sort of spark some interest, and there's a lot more information that goes on behind it, which you'll find in George's book. And also you can find a lot online and with your radio show. So how can women utilise their feminine energy more effectively in today's world?
That's a really good question.
Thank you.
Okay. I feel the most important thing a woman can do is to know herself. Like really know herself. Know your place in this world. Know your relationship with this incredible woman we call Mother Earth. That bond, that love, that I call it the sisterhood. The sisterhood needs to get together, band together, and start really living life with purpose, with intent. And this is, I'll share with you something of utmost importance for a woman to regain her power. What Mother Earth has done is she's sacrificed so much of herself to facilitate, to hold the space for this most incredible, intense, integrative process that we as beings are going through. She's held the space for this human being so we can all incarnate into this arena, onto her planetary body, and go through this incredibly intense integration process so we can rebalance ourselves in life. And in order for her to do that, she needed to adopt and embody certain archetypes. One of them was the martyr archetype, the sacrificial archetype. And that is a major archetypal characteristics that every woman in this world carries. So what I recommend for all women to do and to stop doing is living that sacrificial archetype and the martyr archetype. There's no need for that any longer. And by doing that, and that life of service, because what we need to now do is live a life of purpose, which means we live a proactive life. We step into our creatorship and we forge this new path in this world. We create the new. It's the birthing of the new life now. And in order for us to do that, we need to get away from the sacrificial and martyr archetypes. Now,
this is something that you talked about a little bit the other day, and I just want to understand it more, so I'm sure there's other people out there that also want to understand it a bit more. When you say we need to stop the sacrificing, what exactly do you mean by that?
one of the ways is when you look at the way you move through this reality, we tend to live a reactionary life. For those of us who live the life of service, which is a noble thing to do, but to a certain degree, and you could say in a roundabout way, I still live very much a life of service, but I'm no longer willing to sacrifice what I used to sacrifice in order to still live a life of service. It's a different approach, it's a different attitude, it's a different way of going about doing it, because we've been trained, we've been conditioned to think that you must suffer in pain in order to live a life of service. You must suffer in abject poverty, and these are all ideologies. That is not reality. And I allowed myself to become programmed by those ideologies in the past, and I'm now working my way out of that programming. I come to realise that it was someone else's idea of what I should be. So now I'm all about living the authentic life. I'm about turning inside out and bringing what's in here out into the world. I want to live soul expression. And I know that when I do that, I'm living an authentic life and being genuine. I'm no longer living a lie, because I'm no longer living the will of another. I'm living my genuine, authentic life.
So when you say to stop sacrificing it, stop sacrificing yourself and who you're meant to be for the ideas of other people.
Correct.
So be your true self.
Yes.
Your full expression.
Because many women live this life of service or devotion, but it's an unhealthy devotion. It's not a healthy, because what you want to do is you want to come together and complement one another. Not one should be down and out and suffering in that sacrificial archetype while the other person blossoms.
We're talking
that's
like
out
a
of
relationship.
That's
context.
Or even in a workplace where let's say women who play the role of a personal assistant or a secretary or whatever, they are always wear the brunt of everything. They're always made to do the unsavoury tasks. They're always, it's just always this martyr sacrificial role that they must suffer while everyone else is blooming. And that's out of balance. We need to bring things back into balance. And the people who are relying on that person to play the sacrificial archetype, the those who are playing that role, you've got to realise how much you've trained them. They get used to you being down here and then being up there. And you've got to realise your responsibility that you've trained them to want to treat you this way. So this is owning your co-creative process in all of this. So you need to change the way you function as a being from within, and that is then going to change your the dynamic of the relationship of everything in this world that you have, which means your relationships will start to change. It means your workplace may change, where you live may change. Your whole world will start to change, because
it needs to start within you, doesn't it? Because you can't change the way that this person values you. You need to change the way that you value you, and then that will shift.
That is fantastic.
Thank you. Cool.
What she said.
But then it always just comes back to within yourself. And like I said earlier, you can't love someone else or have someone else love you until you love yourself. So it's the same thing. Right. You need to value yourself before other people value you.
That's right. Yeah, we all need to fall back in love with ourselves. We've forgotten what it means to love, to know thyself, to love thyself. We're living a reactionary life. So let's say when I want to defend my integrity, my honour, who I am as a being, what I need to express myself, how I need to express myself, with respect to others, of course. When somebody wants me to be what I don't want to be in a given situation, then I need to say, I can't be that for you. That's what I started doing.
Take responsibility.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really powerful. But those words, I cannot be what you want me to be. Some people just go, no. But that's actually not a good enough explanation. No is a very powerful word. You can start with no. Yeah? Learn how to say no more often. And so once you get the opportunity to say that and express that, you will feel this incredible sense of empowerment. And the other party may throw a little tantrum, because what's been happening is, with you being this martyr down here and this other energy, it got used to actually feeding off you energetically, because you were serving them not only in the physical way, but also in an energetic sense. So you've been feeding them energetically, been propping them up with your energy. And that up here, whoever that is, got used to feeding off you down here. So they're taking from you energetically, which always leaves you drained, always leaves you tired, worn out, and never enough time for yourself. So what about doing the things that you need to do so you can blossom?
Yes. Yeah,
So
it's taking responsibility for yourself and your actions to look after yourself.
Yes.
And that's one thing I also talk about is with women and children. Although I'm not a mother yet, I have been a child, so I see this with my mother. And it's so important to look after yourself, and in turn that makes you a better mother, because you can't be the best mother that you can be, or the best role model that you can be, when you're not looking after yourself.
That's
and you're
right.
saying one thing but you're doing another.
Yeah, and it's not a match.
No.
And the children grow up to see that. It's a dissonance. And then they end up taking on the characteristics of living a facade on one level and then being something different on another, which is sad. Which I was doing, yeah, and most of us do. We wear that mask, and now I can't wear that mask anymore. I need to be authentic. I just need to be me. Like me, love me, hate me. I'm me. That's who I am.
Yeah. Now, one other question has surfaced for me, and it's something that I always wonder about, because for me, femininity and fashion and makeup and all this kind of stuff, it comes quite easily to me. That's just the person that I am. And that's partly what I'm here to bring out in other people. But then there's a part of me that says maybe other people that are more masculine don't want that.
Okay, so people would listen to what you just said and then just go into the judgment of vanity. Right, they would, wouldn't they? Okay, so this is the magic about the work that you're doing. We have our inner beauty, yeah? And what you're doing is helping women and others to express that inner beauty in an outwardly expression. That's what it's about. It's not vanity. Some people have the issue of vanity. Yeah, they're not happy being just who they are, so they have to wear a mask. But it's like, let me give you an analogy from a male's point of view. I had this magnificent workout with a gentleman called Nick Jones, an Australian bodybuilder. And like him, I went through chronic fatigue syndrome, and he had to reinvent himself. And he ended up becoming world champion after being bedridden for, crippled with chronic fatigue syndrome and in agony for a very long time. And he thought his career was over. So he went totally natural, and reinvented himself and went on to become world champion natural bodybuilder. That is #1 in the world. Like, that is a major, major thing to achieve. Now, I was blessed enough to be able to spend some time with this gentleman, and he's a really great man, genuine, honest. And he turned around and he said to me, we were in the gym, and he said, "See all those guys?" He goes, "They don't get it. Bodybuilding is about love." And I just looked at him and thought, I never knew bodybuilding was about love. I thought it was about vanity. He goes, "No, it's about love." He says, I love myself, and I want to be all I can be in this world. I want to be all I can be mentally. I want to be all I can be emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
Yes. This is exactly where I'm at. I'm like, and why recently I've been training a lot more than I have been, because that physical side, I want to be more physically, and it's not about, as you say, vanity. It's loving myself enough to be the full expression of myself in every area of my life.
Correct.
And I grow my mind. I love myself internally. I look after myself externally, and it's about empowering other women to look at all areas of their life and see which area do they need to work on, the food intake or the exercise or the makeup or the way they dress or what their internal dialogue is like. And that's where my question stemmed from.
Why are you so afraid to bring it out and share it with the world? Be authentic, be that incredible beauty that you are inside. You owe it to yourself. When you say that line, I can't be what you want me to be, what you're doing in that moment is you are loving yourself. You're defending yourself. You'll defend a friend when you need to defend it. You'll defend someone else's honour and integrity. What about yours? Charity starts at home. Yeah? You can't love another until you love yourself. There's no way. You just can't. The day you stop judging yourself is the day you will stop judging others.
Exactly.
So it needs to start from in here, and now it needs to come out, because bringing your light out into this world, your soul expression, is the remedy, is the medicine for you. It is what will heal you more than anything, and it is what will heal this world. We just need everybody to be their authentic self. That way they're bringing their soul light and anchoring it into the world. And that beautiful authenticity, that unconditional love that resides within everybody, that is what permeates and that is what heals this world.
It's like what Gandhi said, if you want to stop war in the world, start by disarming yourself.
That's right.
And it's the same with love.
It's the same as love.
How can people get more of this information from you?
They can go to my website, www.ourjourneyhome.com.au.
Perfect. And then also your book that we have here, Our Universal Journey, where can they get this from?
Everything can be accessed through that website.
Great.
Yeah, it's available in paperback, in ebook and an audiobook.
Well, thank you very, very much for spending the time with me today, and I hope that George has opened your mind to things that you haven't thought about ever before. I know he certainly did that for me. What a fascinating human. The time of great change is upon us, and I hope you got some great insights into that through this interview. For more of George's brilliance, you can visit his website at www.ourjourneyhome.com.au. Well, that was your feedback for Feedback Friday. Now come on over to michelleslayter.com and join the community of comments and submit your questions for anything that you would like feedback on. So get yourself there and leave me a comment now. Thanks for joining me today for A Better Tomorrow. Do you like this episode? If that is a thumbs up from you, then subscribe to my channel so you will never miss an episode. And if you know anyone who will benefit or like this episode, then please share it with them. Now for more lifestyle goodness to support you, come on over to michelleslayter.com and sign up to my latest blog updates. They are fabulous. From clean eating to beauty tips and business, it is all in there. Keep following your heart and shining your bright light, because you have all of the answers within you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week on The Good Life TV. Take care.